What I think of Ozempic for stress eating. Ozempic, or any of the GLP-1s, they are a tool. They're just a tool. It's been a overabundance of people who have been on this drug for stress eating. They're shocked that they still stress eat, because you have to understand that stress eating is not a hunger problem. Emotional hunger isn't a thing. It's just emotions. It's not actual, like, in your stomach, I desire food hunger. It's an emotional response. What is the trigger that makes stress come up for you? What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Dieting from the Inside Out. If you're new around here, welcome to the show. My name is Jared Hamilton, and I'm your host. And in today's episode, we are talking about what I think of Ozempic for stress eating. Now, you can insert any of the GLP-1s here, so it's not just Ozempic. Ozempic is like the main one most people like hear and know what I'm talking about. But you could replace this Ozempic, any semaglutide, Manjaro, any of the same drugs that we're talking about. Because right now, at the time of recording this, it is super hot. It is one of the most trendy subjects in the weight loss and dieting space. And so one of the questions I get asked all the time is, Jared, what do you think of Ozempic for stress eating? Because when it comes to the problems that I solve inside my coaching program with our clients, one of the biggest ones is, really, I would argue all the reasons for overeating, but specifically stress eating. So I want to talk about Ozempic or these GLP-1s for stress eating. Now, I really have in this, looking at my notes, I have three premises that I want to talk about today when it comes to these, because my goal here is to just educate you, to make you go, okay, I haven't really thought about that before, or thought of it in this kind of context. So let me get one thing perfectly straight. It's the very first one on my notes. I am not against these drugs at all. What I am against is using them inappropriately, ignorantly, and out of context, and overall people basically using them who don't need them. Because at the end of the day, it's still a drug. It is still something you are injecting into your body. And at the end of the day, I personally believe they are too easy to get. The fact that there is med spa after med spa, and literally even coaches like me are like across the board partnering with like labs and getting anyone and everyone approved for these drugs. Now, again, I think it's amazing for the people who do need them, but I also think it is way too easy for anyone and everyone, for whatever reason, to get on them. Like, I know a lot of individuals and other coaches and people who want to test and see like what it's like from like their own body to test. Like, I want to see what my clients would experience. And so they literally just hit up anyone that can prescribe these and go, hey, I want to get on it. And they immediately get on it. So I think as a whole, they are too easy to get on. And a lot of people are using them out of context, incorrectly, ignorantly, and the whole works. But all that to say, I'm not against these. I think it's in the weight loss space, we have never seen anything quite like these drugs, because they're very, very good at the specific things that they are meant for. So I also don't believe they are cheating. I don't believe they are taking the easy way out. Like none of that jargon and narrative that you hear all over the space. It's unfortunate that there's a lot of people who get on these and they experience tons of shame. And I don't like that. Even for context, like me talking to you right now, we have clients that are on these drugs. I know I have friends and family that are on these drugs, and I know so many people on these drugs, both men and women. So across the board, I'm not against them. So like when people are like, well, Jared, what do you think about them? I'm not against them at all. Now, my take on them with stress eating specifically is where I want to have the conversation around on this podcast. I've done more general Ozempic GLP-1 episodes on the podcast. So if you're curious about like overall perspective and best practices and things like that, go back and look at those episodes. But I'm talking today about the use of Ozempic or GLP-1s for stress eating, because you have to understand this. Ozempic or any of the GLP-1s, they are a tool. That's it. They're just a tool. Now, a tool is only as good as the context in which it's being used. So for example, scissors are awesome. Like I literally got my hair cut today, and the lady that cut my hair used scissors and like buzzers and all that stuff. But if I took the same scissors and buzzers she used on my head to go to a tree and cut the tree down, I would have horrible results, and I used the wrong tool for the job. So that's how I want you to think about these drugs with this kind of stuff. It's just a tool, not your savior. Where I get a little bit uncomfortable and a little bit like kind of red flaggy is when people look at these drugs like they are literally the Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. They are like the absolute savior. But here's the reality. The drugs are not the savior. You are your savior. Even in coaching, like when I kind of get a little bit like uncomfortable when people even in a coaching dynamic look at me like I'm their savior. Like, no. I am a roadmap. I am a roadmap. I am accountability. I am guidance, but you are your savior. You are the hero to your own movie. You are the savior to your own life because you're the only one that can execute, can implement, can follow through on things. I mean, hell, even using Ozempic, you're the one that has to stick the needle into your stomach. Like the drug doesn't do anything sitting on the counter. So you have to understand that there's all the other pieces as well as that goes into it. No one is the savior except for yourself. That's one of the biggest things. So understand premise number one is I'm not against these drugs at all. They're just tools. But again, the success of a tool always comes back to the context in which it's being used. Now, here's the other thing. This is my second premise is this. Whether you decide to take the drug or not, you need to learn coping mechanisms around stress regardless. Here's why I say that. Suppression isn't an actual solution. Here's the thing with a lot of these drugs, and I'm not going to try to get too sciencey. I'm going to keep it very, very basic. The big premise behind most of these GLP-1s and like Ozempic, semaglutide, all that stuff, is they're predominantly an appetite suppressant, right? They literally will slow down your digestion. That's why a lot of people will get nauseous and sick when they take them, because it's literally slowing down how like your ability to digest the food, so you don't eat as much. They are an amazing powerhouse appetite suppressant. They are incredible at that. But here's where I get a little bit kind of, again, red flaggy, is if you are using Ozempic or GLP-1 for stress eating, that's not a hunger response. To me, taking GLP-1 for stress eating is similar to taking clippers, like the lady that cut my hair today, to a tree. It's the wrong tool for that job. Because at the end of the day, are there some people, and I'm like zooming out, looking at all the clients of ours that we've worked with, the people that I've worked with over the last 15 years. I know like this hasn't been as trendy for like 15 years, but hear me out. And the feedback that I've gotten from just the people that I talk to, are there some people who stress eat less because they're on the drug? Yes, there are some of those that I've seen. But at least in my experience, it's been a overabundance of people who have been on this drug for stress eating. They're shocked that they still stress eat, because you have to understand that stress eating is not a hunger problem. How many times have you ever been eating because you were stressed and you went, I don't know why I'm eating. I'm not even hungry. It is a nervous system response. The concept of stress eating or emotional eating, whether it's stress, worry, fear, doubt, sadness, whatever the emotion is, we'll just say stress eating for lack of a better term, is literally just a coping mechanism you learned years ago, probably when you were a kid. Stress hit, you didn't know how to handle it, and you did the best at what you could, and you found food. And like, oh, I feel better when I eat, whether it's the dopamine hit you get or whether it's the distraction. That's the main one for most people when it comes to stress eating, okay? So this is where a lot of times the terms you use are important. I did a podcast several episodes back, something to the extent of emotional hunger versus physical hunger, where emotional hunger isn't a thing. It's just emotions. But if you call it hunger, of course, you're going to get confused because you're using the not greatest term. I'm not trying to get into semantics, but like that's when people just say without knowing anybody, they're like, oh, it's emotional hunger. No, that's called emotional and you're trying to suppress. It's not hunger. It's not actual like in your stomach, I desire food hunger. It's an emotional response. So this is where we have to be careful with. A lot of people will have any desire for food for whatever reason we call hunger, when that's not always so accurate. That's why there's boredom eating. I mean, hell, when you're boredom eating, you would even admit, I'm sure, that you're not hungry, but you've probably called it hunger. Or if you're craving something, like you're full, you literally went out on date night, you had Thanksgiving, you are stuffed, but then your grandma brings out the ice cream and you're like, okay, maybe I still am hungry. You're not hungry, you're craving ice cream. Two different things. So this is why, like I mentioned on that other episode, we have to be careful the terms we use, because otherwise it gets confusing. My favorite example is this. I love pizza. Pizza's incredible, but I also love my wife. Well, the term love is the same. I love my wife. I love pizza. But I can tell you the love that I have for my wife is very different than the love that I have for pizza. So, but in English, love is the same word, but it's different though. I'm sure you would agree with that. Like, let's say you're a dog person, but you have kids. The love you have for your kids and your dog are two different things, right? So it's the same thing here. This is why we have to be careful with this whole hunger concept, because it can make things sticky. So this is why across the board, when using Ozempic or a GLP-1 for stress eating, we see that it causes a lot of problems. And I see a lot of people, especially in our community across the board that follow me, that listen to the show, that's clients of ours in the program, the whole works, is so many people will get on just because everyone calls hunger the same thing. And it's like, oh, it's overeating. Ozempic will help. But this is where it gets particular. It's not a hunger thing. Stress eating is rarely related to hunger. Now, don't get me wrong. Actually, in my work, there are 4 dominant reasons for binge eating. There are 4 main ones. I've done other podcasts on that. Now, if you might check the box for all of them or 2 of them. So hunger and stress might be part of why you overeat. But if we're talking about just stress eating, this is where a lot of times the shots won't always help as much. But at the end of the day, let's say whether they are or not, we still need to have ways to handle and regulate ourselves from the stress. Because at the end of the day, whether it's working for you or not, suppression is not an actual solution. But like I said, I've seen more cases, at least from what I've observed, when it's stress eating is the problem. So many of the ladies that we work with, they don't see the success with Ozempic or other GLP-1s for the stress eating is because it doesn't take away the stress. The stress is still there. And if you are still using food to escape, distract, or suppress whatever it is you're feeling, why would the drug work? Because it's not a hunger related thing. Again, most people eat when they're not hungry anyway. So this is where it gets sticky. So that's the second main premise, because at the end of the day, I'm just going to skim through my notes real quick with this, because when it comes to all of this, if you think about why you stress eat, it may be your job is probably crazy, or you have a lot of expectations and a lot of pressure. Most of the ladies that we work with in Dieting from the Inside Out are very career oriented, very career driven, are executives, nurses, have a lot on their shoulders, therapists, the whole works. Well, that means that stress is not going away just because you get on a drug. So those things are still there. So if your coping mechanism or the way that you handle that stress is you still find yourself raiding the pantry or falling off on the weekends or drinking too much or whatever, it doesn't change as much, right? So, or things like, let's say it's your job. It could be your kids. Most of the people that we work with have kids. So it doesn't change. Let's say your kids are going through a rough time. Like, let's say your kids are literally being terrorists and you're stressed and don't know how to handle it. And you're like, oh, I'm a shitty parent, and all that stuff is coming up. And so you go to the pantry to self-soothe or to escape for just 5 minutes, just because you're taking the drug. At least I've seen it doesn't really help as much. Say it's a spousal thing. Let's say you and your partner aren't on great terms or whatever the case is, or you, like any normal adult that coexists with another normal adult, you're going to fight. You're going to have arguments. Stuff's going to come up. So it's the same thing. Or just other responsibilities are there. Why do you stress eat? If you think about it, if we peel it back, zoom out, what is the trigger that makes stress come up for you? Is it money? Is it time? Is it not enough time in the day? Is it your kids? All that stuff. So just because you're getting on the drug, it doesn't take away the stimulus of stress. It doesn't take the expectations. It doesn't take all that stuff away. So if your go-to is to run to food just because just to not feel the stress, just because you get on the shot, again, like I said, I have no issues if you want to be on the shot, assuming it's the right decision for you. When the problem is predominantly stress eating, this is where we have some concerns. Again, I know so many people who get on the shot because of food noise and hunger, and that's when we see it really cause some damage, or in a good way. It really helps silence a lot of that. The conversation with that is, well, what happens when you come off of it? Because again, more times than I've seen, at least in our community, they get on the drug for food noise or hunger. They're great, and then they want to quit paying for it, or they want to come off of it, or they don't like the side effects. And as soon as they come off of it, food noise and hunger comes back like a freight train. That's a different conversation, but that's not the point of this episode. If you guys want me to do a episode on my thoughts on Ozempic, GLP-1 for hunger, food noise, all of that, I absolutely can. But I want to keep this episode to specifically stress eating. But if you would like to hear that, comment below, shoot me a message, all that stuff. So, moving on. But like I said, stress and emotions are totally different when it comes to hunger and things like that. It may seem like it's hunger, or you may have hunger, like what you would call being hangry, where you're hungry and feeling angry, sad, worried, doubtful, stressed, these things. But it can cushion some of that, but at least we've found it doesn't do as much when it comes to the stress eating. Again, it might have a little bit because you're not as hungry, but otherwise, if you do not have specific coping mechanisms that allows you to feel through and regulate your nervous system, specifically from these big emotions that you as an adult are going to feel, especially as a high profile adult, as a busy, successful individual, entrepreneur, career oriented person with kids, the whole works. You'll find that it's not going to do as much for the stress. Okay. So that's the second premise. The other thing I want to mention is when it comes to all of this, I'm sorry if this feels a little bit all over the place. I have a lot of notes and I don't want to just read off of this. So the other thing you have to understand too is from this moment moving forward, a lot of your stuff is going to just get bigger, badder, and more intense as far as stress. Like if you think about it, from the moment you're listening to this, wherever you're at in life, you probably want to grow in your life. Right? You probably want to advance in your career. You probably want to, if you don't have kids, you probably want to have kids. If you have kids, they're going to be getting bigger, older, more stuff going on. If you have kids and they're adults, now you have grandbabies, you have more travel. You may be taking care of your parents. You may be going back to school. You're getting promotions, more responsibilities, more things, which means with every new level comes a new devil. You are never going to escape stress or emotions. Part of what makes us human is that we are going to experience the Rolodex of emotions in a lot of us every day. Fear, worry, doubt, anxiety, stress, overwhelm, chaos, uncertainty, sadness, depression, want to pull your hair out, whatever it may be. So if we're waiting for those things to go away, you're going to be waiting forever until your deathbed, just because as you grow in life, we cannot escape these emotions. And at the end of the day, I don't think we would want to, because you know what happens when people don't feel things? They do some crazy stuff to feel. Because if you also understand this, if you numb yourself to the negative emotions, like you hear all those negative emotions and we go, ooh, we don't want to feel those. So that's why emotional eating and stress eating is a thing. You don't want to feel stressed, you eat. You don't want to feel sad, you eat. You don't want to be anxious, you eat. You're feeling overwhelmed and don't know what to do, so you eat. You're bored, which is really closet emotional eating or stress, or anxiety eating or anxious eating. It's all these things where if you numb yourself to all of that, you'll over time numb yourself to the positive. Because numb is numb. You cannot cherry pick what you feel numb to. There's not a world where you can numb yourself to all the negative emotions, stress, worry, doubt, fear, anxiety, sadness, depression, all of that, but then somehow feel all the extent of gratitude, joy, happiness, ecstasy, peace, freedom. It doesn't work like that. Because numb is numb. When I had my knee surgery back in 2019, I did not feel the doctor cut me open. Right? That's awesome because I wouldn't want to, but I would not have felt my wife's hand on my knee, on my knee, or I would have not have felt anything because numb is numb. So this is the really scary side to stress eating is over time, if you stress eat for a long time or emotionally eat in general, you are numbing those parts of you. You are numbing we'll call it the negative for lack of a better term, which means over time you will be numbing the positive. Something that the ladies inside my program in Dieting from the Inside Out, after they've really hit their stride and gotten a lot of momentum, they go, Jared, I just feel happier all the time. How is this? Why am I happier? I go, because you are now shedding love and sharing love with all parts of you. All the dark parts you used to exile, stress, bad, fear, bad, worry, bad, anxiety, bad. Any of these emotions, they'd run and eat or they would avoid. But now you are literally saying, hey, all these emotions over here, you guys are allowed in my body. I'm allowed to feel stress. I'm allowed to feel anxiety. I'm allowed to feel overwhelmed, and they regulate. Well, that just amplifies all the emotions, including the positive ones. This is why if your solution is to stay busy, stay distracted, or continue suppressing, you're in for a really hard life, and fat loss is not going to be in it because how you suppress is with food. And if you just constantly overeat, you're not going to lose weight or be consistent. Hopefully this is making sense. Because from this moment forward, your responsibilities and stress is going to get bigger. So it's more important than ever to have good coping mechanisms right now, whether you are going to take Ozempic or GLP-1, regardless. Because at the end of the day, you need to be able to regulate these things in general. All right. Next. So again, like I said, if you don't have cornerstone framework systems and routines for handling emotions like stress, worry, sad, anxiety, etc., you're going to continue to stress eat. Again, whether you're on the drug or not. I think it's more important, especially if you plan on coming off of the drug, that you really need to have these things in place, which leads me to my final point with all of this. What time we got? Oh, we're only 20 minutes in, so I'm good. Let me actually say this before we get into my final point. And I'll read it to you how it was written in my notes. Stress and emotions aren't something to be managed. They're meant to be felt. If you don't feel, you don't heal, and you mentally get backed up. I want you to think of it this way, and this is one of the way I explain it to our clients when it comes to stress or any emotions, and this is where it gets really uncomfortable. Emotions, I want you to think of like your digestive system. This is really gross. I stole this analogy from a friend of mine, Kyle Cease. It's gross, but it is the best analogy ever. When it comes to your emotions, I want you to view it like going to the bathroom. You drink water, drink liquid, and eat food all day, okay? So you are going to go to the bathroom every day. You're going to pee and shit every day, hopefully. But you don't judge that. Imagine you felt the desire to go to the bathroom. You go, ooh, what's this mean? This is bad. And you go eat and distract because you don't like the way it feels to need to go to the bathroom, or you don't like the feeling of going to the bathroom. So you go distract yourself, scroll on social media, go watch Netflix, go drink, go work out too much, whatever your coping mechanism is. That's only going to get you so far before you have a big accident, because that builds and builds and builds and builds until you just bust. Now, you couldn't go 40 years without going to the bathroom, but you could absolutely go 40 years without feeling emotions. And this is when people are emotionally and mentally backed up, because since you were a kid or these coping mechanisms became a thing, there's so many people that have been hiding their emotions with food, hiding their emotions with, this could be any vice, for example. This could be drinking too much, scrolling too much on social media, diving into their career too hard, working out, literally whatever it may be. Everyone's thing is different. We're talking about stress eating, but I've seen so many individuals, especially the ones that have gone through my program, they spent their whole lives in suppressing mode and avoidance and distracting. So it feels not even right. It feels wrong to feel your emotions, but you have to understand your emotions aren't meant to be managed. This is why people tell me all the time when they come to me and they're talking about stress eating and food noise, and they go, well, how's that been going? And they're like, well, I'm good as long as I keep myself preoccupied or distracted. And I'm like, if your strategy for not binging your face off is just being distracted, holy shit, you are literally signing up for a life contract with a shitty life. Imagine if you told your kid that. Would you tell your kid, hey, you can only handle this stuff as long as you stay distracted? That's just asking for poor behavior, bad habits, and a lifetime of misery and struggle versus what's the best thing to do? We feel. What would you do? What do you do when your friend calls you and they had a breakup, or their boyfriend cheated on them, or their dog died? Do you just say, oh, well, just go distract yourself? Of course not. You go, oh my gosh, what happened? Tell me, come over. I'm coming over to you. You go hold space for them, but you don't do it for yourself. This is why, if you do not have systems and frameworks and routines ready to go to handle these emotional moments, stress, worry, fear, doubt, you are literally one negative thought, negative situation, work stress moment, kid issue, away from spiraling everything you're working so hard for. If you think about it, if you zoom out and logically go, how often do you feel these emotions every week, every day? It's all the time. So if you don't have this stuff in place, like routines and systems and frameworks, you're literally never going to make it. I don't mean to sound cynical by any means, but I'm just being honest with you. This is also why, if literally putting my money where my mouth is, this is why this is one of the first things that we fix with clients. Literally, in my program, just for context, like a little object lesson here, in my program, Dieting from the Inside Out, the reason it's called Dieting from the Inside Out is because that's the first stage of my program. We don't do fat loss stuff until stage 2. The worst thing I could do for someone, if they have stress eating, is make them go into a fat loss phase and take them right to where they want to go. It would be the most irresponsible thing I could do, because imagine that. Imagine me, someone paying, signing up for my program. I put them through a fat loss phase and I know they're going to stress eat. That's an ethical problem. This is what gets me when I see coaches who see someone who has a bad relationship with food or binge eating patterns or stress eating, and they go ahead and throw them into a fat loss phase and don't ever address that. I'm like, y'all shouldn't be coaching, or you should have referred that person somewhere else, because you know they won't be able to keep their results. That would be like if I was a realtor selling someone a house and not telling them the foundation's broken. I would be irresponsible. That's just wrong. So for me, it's the same thing. This is why in my program, Dieting from the Inside Out, that's actually how this term came about, by the way. The term Dieting from the Inside Out came before I had stuff named in the program, like the phases and stuff, where I knew I would have to fix someone's internal world, like their relationship with food, their stress eating and things like that before fat loss. But I would be explaining to someone that's wanting to get in on the program. They're like, well, how's it work? How's that whole first part work? And it came out of my mouth. I said, well, I basically have to diet you from the inside out first before I diet you for real. Because before we can do diet stuff to get you to lose weight sustainably, I have to fix all the shit that's causing you to sabotage, which includes stress eating, because you're a human, you feel emotions, and we live in a crazy ass world. So if you don't have systems, frameworks, and routines ready to regulate in a healthy way, you know what happens if you stress eat for the next decade of your life? Hell reigns loose. You become emotionally numb and you literally will gain 100 pounds. And you're passing those things on a silver platter down to your kids. But if you use systems and frameworks like the ones that we use in my program to regulate your emotions in a very healthy, mentally and emotionally healthy way, you do that for the next 10 years, you stop binge eating, you lose all your weight, and you actually are happy and you are an emotionally regulated adult. Back to that whole going to the bathroom analogy. What do you do when you drink food eat food and drink water all day and you go to the bathroom? You go, oop, time to pee. You go to the bathroom. You don't think anything of it. Well, you live in a stressful world with lots of responsibilities and a lot of things going on and things going wrong. You put out fires all damn day. And then when you feel stress, you go, oh, I'm not supposed to feel this. And you go distract. That's literally like needing to go poop and going, I don't want to poop. And then you go hide from pooping. You're going to get backed up. You would get backed up and it would cause issues. You would get sick. You would have digestive problems. You'd have to go to the hospital. You get super duper constipated. When it comes to this stuff on the emotional side, if you keep stress eating, you are going to become mentally and emotionally constipated. Some of you guys are already there. I know that's a gross analogy, but it's so true. But the solution is to regulate. If you think about food and water, it just comes through you every day. The same thing goes with your emotions. You should have your emotions go through you, which means you have to feel them, which means you have to regulate through them, which means you have to have systems, frameworks, routines to do what we call regulate and feel and process them. Again, emotions aren't meant to be managed, like micromanaging. They're meant to be felt and processed and healed through, just like going to the bathroom. So if your program or what you're doing doesn't have those, you need to. If you need some help with it, literally reach out, because that's exactly what we teach. Fundamentally, it's the first thing in my program, because if we don't fix these things first, the other stuff doesn't matter. This is why I always say you have to earn the right to go into a weight loss phase with me, because I want you to lose the weight and keep it off forever, not lose weight and then stress eat and then go in and out for the rest of your life. Okay. And then finally, my third point with all this, most people's obstacles, I actually kind of like bled into this a little bit already. Most people's main obstacles as to why you can't lose weight or get to where you want to be is because you don't feel. I kind of got ahead of myself with this one a little bit with my last little rant, but you have to understand this is because, again, we're talking about Ozempic or GLP-1 for stress eating, but most people's problem is the obstacles as to why you can't get to where you want to be is because you don't feel. Because it sucks. Feeling stress sucks. Being anxious and feeling anxiety sucks. You feel it right here and you can't breathe. And all of a sudden it's like, oh my gosh, and panic happens. But this is why whenever someone doesn't want to feel, it's why they overeat or stress eat. It's why they work out too much. It's why they drink too much alcohol. And they call it, I'm just taking the edge off. It's why they scroll on social media too much. It's why they watch hours and hours and hours of Netflix. It's why they use any means to not be with the darker parts of themselves. So if you just start to learn and do what I just said and have frameworks and systems and routines to feel and regulate what is coming up and coming through you, you'll notice 99% of all the things that you can't lose weight from go away. Imagine how much easier weight loss would be if you stopped stress eating because you regulated your emotions. Imagine how much easier it would be to stay on track versus falling off on the weekends because you didn't let your stress build up till Saturday night where you'd go drink 3 bottles of wine. Imagine how much easier weight loss would be and how much better your clothes would fit if you quit trying to run from all the stress in your life and what you're feeling in these darker parts of you, the stories, the beliefs. Imagine how much easier it would all be if there was peace in your life. Imagine how much better you would feel about yourself, how much more confident you would be, how much more self-loving, how much more self-aware, and how much better of a human you would be if you actually just sat and paused and let yourself process what's coming up for you. Most people's issue isn't their emotions, it's their relationship with their emotions. You view stress as bad. You view anxiety as bad. You view sadness and depression as bad. You view feeling overwhelmed as bad. You're like, no, I shouldn't feel this. And you go over there to not feel it where all the food is at. So, and to tie this whole thing together, which is why you were watching a podcast episode that's like my thoughts on Ozempic for stress eating is because you're like, oh, maybe if I take Ozempic or GLP-1, I'll be better at my stress eating. And the whole premise, sorry, I'm saying this 29 minutes later, is it's not going to help you. Ozempic and GLP-1 is a hunger, craving, food noise-based thing. But if your issue is you can't not feel stress or anxiety or worry or overwhelm without taking a swan dive into the pantry or freezer, the shot's not going to help you. Some of you, yeah, it might, until you have a really big stressful day. And then all of a sudden it's not going to matter. Because when you're stress eating, it is not a hunger response. It is a, fuck, I don't want to feel this response. That's why so many people are wasting so much money on that when it comes to stress eating. And they're like, why isn't it working? It's because you never handled the actual culprit, your relationship with stress, your relationship and your systems and strategies and frameworks with the emotions that you feel that we would label as negative or dark. But the reality is those emotions are still part of you. So when you go, I don't want to feel this, you are literally giving a middle finger to darker parts of you, but they're still part of you, which has the equivalent. What I tell clients is, like imagine your kid's dog dying and then them coming to you and you go, nope, mommy's only here for good emotions. Go have some cereal. I'll get you a new Rover. You would never do that in a million years, but on the inside, that's what you're doing to you. So this is why the solution, I don't want to leave you hanging. The solution is to do what I said and have actual frameworks and systems and routines for regulating your stress, feeling it, processing it, and not running from it on the daily. This is not a lever to pull or an EpiPen when you go into anaphylactic or the sky is falling ripcord. This is the equivalent of you go into the bathroom every day. What do you do when it comes to stress and emotional regulation? That's would be in the same zone as going to the bathroom every day. That's what you need. If you need help, that's exactly what we do inside my program, Dieting from the Inside Out. If you want to see if that would be a good fit for you, shoot me a message. Shoot me a message on Instagram at @RealJaredHamilton and just say that you listen. Shoot me whatever episode this is. You know what? Just shoot me a message and just say, hey, I listened to the podcast and I need help with my emotional eating, my stress eating. There we go. Just shoot me a message, say stress eating, and then I'll help. Sorry, I'm trying to think of the different things from different episodes that I've mentioned so I know where you came from. Just shoot me a message on Instagram at @RealJaredHamilton, and I'll see if I can help. Okay? Otherwise, that is it for today's episode. And if you would like to hear me do other episodes on the other stuff I talked about with like Ozempic and GLP-1, I would love to do it, but only if there's enough people that actually want to hear it. So if that's you, shoot me a message, let me know, and then we'll go from there. Otherwise, I appreciate you. And if you haven't yet, go peek down in the description of the podcast. I got some other goodies down there for you that I think will be helpful. Otherwise, I will talk to you next time. Love you guys.